long before there were nations, long before there were borders, long before there were thousands of languages spoken across the earth. Humanity was united. One people, one language, one civilization. The world had survived a catastrophe unlike anything before or since. The flood was over, the waters had receded, and the descendants of Noah began rebuilding human civilization. For a brief moment in history, the entire human race shared a common ancestry, a common language, and a common future. As generations passed, villages became towns, towns became cities, agriculture flourished, trade expanded, human civilization recovered with remarkable speed. But that unity would not last. On the plains of Shinar, humanity embarked on a project so ambitious, so defiant, that it would change the course of history forever. They would build a city, they would build a tower, and they would make a name for themselves. What happened next would divide humanity into nations, scatter people across the earth, and shape the world we still live in today. For centuries, many dismissed the Tower of Babel as little more than a legend, a simple story meant to explain the existence of different languages. But buried beneath the sands of Mesopotamia lie the remains of one of the most famous cities in history. Ancient inscriptions, forgotten towers, massive ruins, and discoveries that raise a fascinating question. Could the story of Babel be rooted in a real place? Tonight, we travel back to the cradle of civilization, to the land of Shinar, to the city that would become Babylon, and to the tower that divided the world. When the flood ended, humanity began again through a single family. Noah, his sons, and their descendants became the ancestors of the post-flood world. The generations that followed shared a common ancestry, language, and culture. If you'd like to explore the world that existed before these events, click the link above. We've covered that story in detail elsewhere. As the population increased, settlements began appearing throughout the fertile lands of Mesopotamia. Some focused on farming, others became centers of trade and craftsmanship. Irrigation canals carried water across the plains. Harvests became increasingly abundant. The foundations of civilization were being laid once again. The region where much of this growth occurred was known as Shinar. Located between the Tigris and Euphrates rivers, it possessed some of the most fertile land in the ancient world. The rivers provided water, the soil produced food, and the open plains allowed communities to expand rapidly. Many historians associate the land of Shinar with the region later known as Sumer. It was here that some of the world's earliest cities emerged. It was here that writing, trade, and organized government flourished. As generations passed, settlements expanded into cities. Roads connected communities. Commerce increased, and population centers continued to grow. Civilization was flourishing, and increasingly, people gathered together rather than spreading outward. Yet humanity had been instructed to fill the earth. Instead, a different path was beginning to take shape. The larger the settlements became, the more ambitious their plans grew. What began as cooperation would soon become something far greater: a city, a tower, and a project that would alter human history forever. As humanity gathered in Shinar, cities continued to grow across the fertile plains of Mesopotamia. Some became centers of trade, others became centers of government. But among them, one city would become more famous than all the rest: Babel. In time, the name Babel would become known throughout the ancient world. The city stood at the heart of a region that would shape human civilization for thousands of years. Among the names connected with Babel is a powerful figure known as Nimrod. Described as a mighty ruler, Nimrod became associated with some of the earliest centers of civilization in Mesopotamia. Although many details about Nimrod remain uncertain, his name became linked with the rise of Babel and the beginning of a kingdom centered in Shinar. As generations passed, Babel continued to expand. Its influence grew. Its population increased, and its ambitions became greater. The city would eventually become known by another name, Babylon. For centuries, many dismissed Babel as little more than a legend. But Babylon was very real. Its ruins still exist today. Beginning in the late 19th century, archaeologists began uncovering large portions of the ancient city. Beneath centuries of sand and debris, they discovered evidence of one of the most remarkable cities of the ancient world. They uncovered enormous defensive walls, ceremonial roads, temples, and royal palaces. The discoveries revealed a city of extraordinary scale and wealth, a city whose influence stretched across the ancient world. Among the most famous discoveries was the Ishtar Gate. Originally one of Babylon's grand entrances, the gate was decorated with brilliantly colored glazed bricks and images of powerful creatures. The more archaeologists uncovered, the clearer the picture became. Babylon was no myth. The city was real. Its kings were real. Its walls were real. Its temples were real. But buried beneath the history of Babylon was an even greater mystery. A mystery involving a tower. A tower so famous that its story survived for thousands of years. If Babylon was real, could the tower have been real as well? The people of Shinar had a bold vision. They would build a city, and at the center of that city, they would build a tower. Not a small monument, not a simple watchtower, but a structure unlike anything the world had ever seen. The project began with a technological breakthrough. Rather than relying on natural stone, builders produced bricks in enormous quantities. The plains of Mesopotamia contained little building stone, but clay was abundant. By baking bricks and sealing them with bitumen, ancient builders could construct structures on a scale previously impossible. With thousands of laborers working together, the tower began to rise, higher and higher. For centuries, artists imagined the Tower of Babel in many different ways. Some depicted a spiraling tower. Others imagined a fortress reaching into the clouds. But archaeology provides a different picture. Many historians point to a massive Babylonian structure known as Etemenanke. Its name is often translated as House of the Foundation of Heaven and Earth. Located in Babylon, Etemenanke was one of the largest ziggurats ever built in Mesopotamia. Although it was constructed long after the events of Babel, many researchers believe it may preserve the memory of an earlier tower that once stood in the region. Unlike pyramids, ziggurats were built in a series of ascending levels. Each stage carried the structure higher above the surrounding landscape. From miles away, such structures would have dominated the horizon. They became symbols of power, prestige, and authority. But one discovery is especially fascinating. In 2011, researchers announced the discovery of a remarkable Babylonian artifact, a stone carving that appears to depict Babylon's Great Tower. The artifact shows King Nebuchadnezzar II standing beside an image of a massive ziggurat. It also contains inscriptions describing the structure. For many researchers, it provides one of the clearest surviving depictions of Babel's tower. Ancient records also describe enormous construction efforts associated with the tower itself. Workers were gathered from across the empire. Materials were transported over vast distances. And generations participated in its construction and restoration. The deeper archaeologists looked into Babylon's past, the more familiar the story began to sound. A great city, a monumental tower, humanity united in a common purpose. But the greatest mystery was not how the tower was built. The greatest mystery was why. To answer that question, we must understand what the tower represented and why the people of Babel believed it was worth building. Why devote such enormous resources to a single structure? Why gather so many people in one place? Why build a tower that dominated the landscape for miles around? The answer may lie in the purpose of towers throughout the ancient world. Across Mesopotamia, civilizations constructed enormous stepped structures known as ziggurats. These towers became some of the most recognizable landmarks of the ancient Near East. To modern eyes, they resembled giant pyramids, but their purpose was very different. Pyramids were tombs. Ziggurats were places of worship. These structures were designed to elevate temples high above the surrounding world. The higher the temple stood, the closer it appeared to heaven. Many ancient cultures viewed mountains as places where heaven and earth met. But southern Mesopotamia had very few mountains, so the people built their own. For the people of Babel, the tower may have represented far more than an impressive building project. It may have symbolized humanity's attempt to establish its own center of power, its own identity, its own destiny. The builders revealed part of their motivation when they declared, "Let us make a name for ourselves." This was no ordinary construction project. The tower became a symbol of human achievement, human ambition, and human confidence. At the same time, the people expressed another concern. They feared being scattered across the earth. Yet spreading across the earth was exactly what humanity had been instructed to do. Instead of dispersing, the people concentrated their efforts into a single city. From a human perspective, the project appeared unstoppable. Every builder understood the plan. Every worker shared the same goal. Every citizen contributed toward the same vision. The city grew, the tower rose, and humanity became increasingly confident in its own strength. But the builders were about to discover that the future they imagined would never come to pass. The moment had come. The city, the tower, the people, everything was in place. And then, God intervened. The change was invisible. No walls collapsed, no fire fell from heaven, no floodwaters covered the earth. Yet within moments, the greatest construction project in human history began to unravel. Orders that had once been understood instantly now made no sense. Instructions became meaningless sounds. Simple conversations became impossible. At first, there may have been frustration, then confusion, then panic. Workers who had labored side by side could no longer communicate. Merchants struggled to conduct business. Leaders found themselves unable to coordinate their people. The tower that had united humanity was now exposing its divisions. Families discovered they could understand some people, but not others. Communities naturally began grouping together according to the languages they shared. What had once been a single people was becoming many peoples. What had once been one language was becoming many languages. The project could not continue. Without communication, coordination became impossible. Without coordination, construction stopped. The city that had hoped to unite humanity forever had become the place where humanity was divided. Because of this event, the city became known as Babel, a name forever associated with confusion, division, and the scattering of the nations. But the story was not over. The people had been divided. Now they would be scattered. And as they spread across the earth, they would carry their languages, cultures, and histories into every corner of the world. The result was inevitable. People began to leave. Families packed their possessions. Communities gathered their livestock. Entire groups set out in search of new homes. Some traveled north, others moved south. Others followed rivers, valleys, and coastlines into lands that had never been settled before. As generations passed, those communities became increasingly distinct. Languages continued to develop. Dialects emerged. Cultures adapted to new environments. What began at Babel did not remain at Babel. The effects spread across the world. The descendants of those who left Shinar established new settlements across vast distances. Over time, those settlements became tribes. Those tribes became peoples, and those peoples became nations. Stories, traditions, and memories traveled with them. Fragments of humanity's earliest history spread alongside the people themselves. But Babel itself was left behind. The city that had hoped to unite humanity became the place from which humanity dispersed. The builders had feared being scattered across the earth. In the end, that is exactly what happened. The world would never be the same again. But Babel's influence did not end with the scattering. Its legacy would continue for thousands of years. And the name Babylon would become one of the most enduring names in human history. Over time, Babel became Babylon, and Babylon would grow into one of the most famous cities of the ancient world. Its influence extended across vast regions. Its kings ruled mighty empires. Its name became known throughout the Near East. The city became a symbol of human achievement, human power, and human ambition. In many ways, the same spirit that drove the construction of the tower continued to echo throughout Babylon's history. A desire for greatness, a desire for glory, a desire to leave a lasting name. The influence of Babel extended far beyond bricks and stone. The consequences of its division continued to shape the development of civilizations for generations. The spiritual consequences of Babel would eventually reach far beyond language and geography. If you'd like to explore that subject further, click the link above. For thousands of years, the story of Babel survived. It was remembered by generations, preserved in ancient writings, and ultimately recorded in scripture. The city itself rose and fell. Empires came and went. Kings appeared and disappeared. But the memory of Babel endured. Today, little remains of the city that once stood at the center of the ancient world. Its walls are broken. Its towers are gone. Its empire has vanished. Yet the story of Babel endures. And it brings us to one final question. What remains of Babel today? Thousands of years have passed since the events at Babel. The tower that once dominated the plains has disappeared, and the city itself lies in ruins. But the ambitions that drove its construction did not disappear with it. The desire for power, the desire for recognition, the desire to build something that would endure. The people of Babel believed their project would secure their future. Instead, it became one of history's great turning points. The effects of that moment spread far beyond the plains of Shinar. They shaped the development of civilizations, influenced the course of nations, and left an imprint on the world that remains visible today. Archaeologists continue to uncover pieces of the story: ruins, inscriptions, foundations, fragments of a world long vanished. The story of Babel is more than the story of a tower. It is the story of a moment that changed the course of human history. Thousands of years have passed, yet the desires that brought the people of Shinar together have never disappeared. The desire for unity, the desire for security, the desire to build something greater than ourselves. Today, humanity is more connected than at any point in history. The tower is gone, but the questions Babel raised remain. If Babel was humanity's first great attempt at unity, what might the next one look like?
Thanks for watching. If you enjoyed this video, make sure to like, share, and subscribe so you don't miss what's coming next. And if you want to go even deeper into these mysteries, click one of the videos on your screen now and keep watching. I'll see you in the next one.